BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Today we're revisiting the case of the Benoit family murders, otherwise known as a double murder-suicide that took place in 2007 involving the wrestler Chris Benoit, which led to the deaths of his wife Nancy, their son Daniel, and of course Chris Benoit taking his own life, according to the most well-accepted narrative. But there are some alternative theories out there about what could have possibly happened. Now, we've mentioned this case twice before on the channel, and in those particular uploads, we talk more about the step-by-step aspects that could have taken place during the events which led to the deaths of those three people. But right now, we're going to talk more about the motivations that could have caused this double murder-suicide from 2007. So I was on YouTube and I found this video called Injuries in Pro Wrestling that featured a segment from Chris Benoit, and it even had the TNN logo in the corner to give you some perspective on how old it is. Like prior to Spike TV, it was called TNN, and there was some... It's either a merger or they just rebranded the channel, but anyway, let's have a listen.
Fragmented into my spinal column, which caused severe pain in my neck. So I knew immediately something was very drastically wrong.
Wolverine is back, and is back to being one of the best in the world. He probably got there faster than most people that I know. He's one of a kind. I wish we had 100 guys like Chris Benoit.
Okay, the first voice you heard there, of course, was Chris Benoit himself, and the second one was JR, the famous WWE announcer. Now, what can we say about that? When I heard that, I just got this type of red flag feeling about the way that Chris Benoit was describing his neck injury. And very famously, he was someone who not only had a neck injury, but Edge described him as the person who advised him on what to do after Edge had his neck injury and all the things to make sure everything was going correctly. So he became someone that people really looked up to. But on this other channel called WrestleLamia, and yes, WrestleLamia, I watched the channel like many times before I finally realized their name was WrestleLamia, Lamia. I thought it was just called WrestleMania, but they gave some possibilities in their video about what they believed caused the Benoit family murders in 2007, and they listed 4 factors. Number 1, brain damage. Number 2, use of steroids. Number 3, deep depression with a question mark. Number 4, unknown dark side. That's what they believe that would have happened with Chris Benoit. And I'm going to tell you flat out, something that I probably stand by and I've said in the previous uploads, all of the above. But one thing that might be very well overlooked in this case is Chris Benoit's neck injury. And you heard it there just when he was talking about how severe it was, and talking about the fracture in the spinal column. And I just wanted to know, is there any possibility that the neck injury that Chris Benoit experienced could have contributed to the deterioration of his mental state? Because if we're going to go to that list one more time, brain damage, steroids, depression, dark side, that's like more than 3/4 of the WWE. That's more than 75% of the wrestlers out there. And Hardcore Holly said very, very, very clearly in an interview, every wrestler has taken some type of banned substance at one point or another for the pain. When I was watching that WrestleLamia video, they really tried to say that Benoit was using steroids because he wanted to bulk up. He was 5'11", which was smaller than a lot of the other wrestlers. A lot of people in the comments section were like, 5'11", that doesn't sound very small. I mean, that's definitely above average height for the USA. But they're saying he wanted to bulk up because many wrestlers were much larger than him. Okay, that could be one thing, but I really think they downplayed the role of banned substances and performance enhancers when it comes to pain management. And of course, they're coming at it from an outsider perspective, whereas Hardcore Holly would be coming at it from an insider perspective. But I got on Google, and I just found countless things that are talking about the correlation between neck pain and mental illness, neck pain and mental instability. We got, associations with depression caused by neck pain that is coming to us from the National Institute of Health by Dr. F. Liu. We got things about mental disorders linked to chronic back or neck pain by psychiatry advisor, mental disorders among people with common back or neck pain from ScienceDirect.com. It seems like maybe his neck injury could have played a very large possible role that is really downplayed in the discussions that people are having about Chris Benoit and why he committed these murders. And I know there's some alternative theories out there, but one of the things that I also did was, because I was watching some things about wrestling and watching some other Chris Benoit videos, an interview came up that had just been posted this year. Right now it's January of 2020, so it was about 2 weeks ago. An interview came up featuring David Benoit, the son of Chris Benoit, and he's like the spitting image of his father, really. Just maybe he's a little bit taller, maybe he's a little bit skinnier, but definitely resembles his father. And I was watching that one, and he was just very emotional. He had a lot of trouble accepting or just coming forward. He said it was the first time that he truly came forward and gave an interview talking about how the death of his father and his stepmother, Nancy Benoit, had affected him, not to mention his brother, Daniel. And the things that he said in there very, very clearly is just dispelling all of the internet conspiracy theories. We've talked about them a little bit on this channel. I don't personally believe any of them. Maybe in the past I did, and I was very open to other possibilities, that there could have been something about the Benoit family murders that we didn't necessarily know. But I have to tell you, partially that's just because I'm somewhat of a wrestling fan, and in 2007 that was the height of my fandom with the WWE, as well as some other brands and such. That was the height of my fandom, so a lot of us really had some trouble accepting that Chris Benoit, someone who was so well loved, could have committed this tragedy. And that I can tell you firsthand. I mean, I definitely was on the same page with that. So he actually said though they were trying to make a movie about Chris Benoit called The Crippler, and the project was in complete swing. They even had a director who was on board, but the family was able to reject it. And they said just, they would not sign off on it. And so the project did not get the green light. And part of me, not gonna lie, was like, wow, I would really like to see a movie about about Chris Benoit and even about the stuff about the murders. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you gotta be like, hey, the family got their right to privacy. Because one of the things with true crime, we were talking about this a little bit when we mentioned the Dunblane massacre from Scotland, because there was a big discussion about how do you present people who are involved with possible allegations or just true crime in general. How do you talk about people who are affected by true crime cases? There's no fiction. These are real people living real lives, and their names get spread around all over the media and such. And the Benoit family actually had their right to privacy, and they were actually able to stop the production of the movie that they didn't want, or at least after reading the script, they did not want that particular perspective shown on screen. So that is good news for them. But the thing, though, that we can really see is there were a lot of things going on. And when we want to look at the fourth thing on WrestleMania's list of possibilities, in the comment section for that video, there was a comment left from the Hannibal TV channel. Hannibal TV is, of course, the one that provides a lot of good interviews with wrestlers. And I wouldn't even mention this except because it came from, Hannibal TV, that the dark side of Chris Benoit is something that a lot of the fans really don't want to talk about. They're talking about how moments of outrage that he experienced against his wife Nancy, and some of the stuff is coming to light, even possibility of acting like somewhat of a bully toward other people, or just outrageous outbursts. Those types of things are things that the fans really wanted to disregard at the time. And I think that also contributed. I think that's something that there really were signs of this. They were asking David Benoit during the interview, did you ever notice any signs from your father that he would be capable of something like this? He said flat out no, but at the same time, for many years, he didn't really live with him because, of course, he was in Canada. David Benoit was still in Canada, and Chris Benoit was wrestling with the WWE. Even if he had lived in the same house, he wouldn't have seen him much. He would have been on the road 320 nights a year or something like that. So what you can see is it really is all of the factors. But after we played that little clip, when I heard that, I began to wonder, what could be the connection between neck injuries and mental stability? I really thought there might be something there. That just the light bulb just went off, and I thought there could be a possible thing. But it's everything with Chris Benoit, though. And one point that David Benoit, his son, brought up was it's because of the Benoit tragedy that they really began to investigate a lot more into CTE. Chris Benoit was described as having the brain of an 88-year-old man, or sometimes you hear it as the brain of an 88-year-old with Alzheimer's. He was not in a good state of mind, and they really began to look into the effects of CTE. It was a slow process, but at the same time, this incident really allowed the entire sporting world to re-examine what concussions and what brain damage could be doing to athletes, and some of the causes and effects that this will have in the future for these people. And as you see with Nancy and Daniel Benoit, the people who are around the person who is affected by this. So it really revolutionized the discussion on sports medicine, health, and the NFL went through a $765 million lawsuit because of this. They made that movie Concussion with Will Smith. People are now somewhat aware of this. They're now aware of how these things function. Well, I think we're going to have to leave it at that. And I would just like to ask you, what do you think could be some possible motivations for the death of Chris Benoit, as well as his wife Nancy and their son Daniel? Do you think that there's anything that we did not cover in this upload that could have contributed to the death of these three individuals? If you have anything to say at all, I would love to hear from you. Please drop a comment below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to subscribe. But most importantly, please put in some comments so we can continue the discussion. Until next time.